My wife slept with men from a bar, claiming she deserved it for having a baby. So I gave her payback. I am 30 male, married my wife, Claire 28, female 3 years ago. We have a 7-month-old daughter. A few days ago, I found something in her bag that completely floored me. It was a pack of condoms. Now, I'm not the type of guy who checks his wife's things, but this time I had no choice. Claire was in the shower, and I needed to change my baby. I had placed her on the changing table, and when I went to grab a diaper, I realized we were almost out. Claire usually keeps a few spare diapers in her bag for walks, so I reached for it. As I opened it, I found 2 diapers inside, but when I pulled one out, something fell to the floor, a pack of condoms. There were 3 inside, but the pack was open, and only one was left. I checked to see if the others had fallen inside, but they weren't there. That meant 2 had already been used. The baby started crying loudly, so I quickly pocketed the condom and finished changing her. When Claire came out of the shower, I put our daughter in her crib, took the condom out, and confronted her about it. Immediately, she went into full denial mode, trying to turn the situation around on me. She claimed it wasn't hers and tried to gaslight me, saying I must have planted it in her bag. I was stunned by how easily she lied. I told her I had found it in her bag, but she turned it around, saying, "You just pulled it from your pocket, didn't you?" I snapped, but she just burst out laughing and said, "Oh, poor you. Look at your face. I was messing with you." She winked as she said it. It was obvious she was lying. We don't use protection because she's breastfeeding and hasn't gotten her period back yet. But then she said, "Well, my cycle is back to normal, so we might need protection to avoid more kids." I pressed her about the other 2 condoms, and she casually explained that yesterday she had bought the pack and went out with her friends. One of her friends, Nathan, had been flirting with a guy, and things got steamy. They went off to find a quiet spot, but when they couldn't find any protection, Claire lent them 2 of hers. I was completely dumbfounded. I asked, "You expect me to believe that?" But she insisted it was the truth and even said I could call Nathan to verify. I didn't bother calling. If Claire was lying, then Nathan would cover for her, and it would just be a pointless loop of dishonesty. Instead, I told her I wasn't buying her excuse, and that she needed to be honest with me about whatever was really going on. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying that I didn't trust her, crying and claiming I didn't understand her struggles. She said she had just had a baby and was dealing with postpartum depression. But in the middle of all of this, she was accusing me of not trusting her. I didn't try to reconcile with her. I left things as they were, but the atmosphere became tense. She just curled up in bed, refusing to turn on the lights, saying the brightness bothered her, and she wasn't eating at all. I'm not sure what she's doing when I'm not home, but here's what's been going on since our confrontation. I'm the one who usually ends up apologizing after our fights because, hardly any woman admits fault first. But this time, I just don't feel like apologizing at all. I don't think I did anything wrong by confronting her about the condoms. Do you think I should have done something differently? Seriously, if she's using postpartum depression as an excuse for handing out condoms like candy, maybe it's time for a reality check. I admit, her excuses are way better than her honesty. As for what could have been done differently, well, maybe I should have packed my own emergency condom in the diaper bag. Who knows? Next time, maybe she pull out a rubber chicken and say it's for stress relief. Update 1. Thank you for the support and comments. You guys were spot on. There were red flags all along, and I didn't let them slide. Some of you asked for more background on Claire to better understand the situation. Well, Claire and I have known each other for about 6 years now. We met at a mutual friend's party. She was by far the most stunning woman there, and we spent the evening talking, dancing, and just having a good time. Unfortunately, I forgot to ask for her number, and I'm not really the party type anyway. It was my friend's work event, and he insisted I come. I asked him about Claire, but he didn't know her either. She was a colleague of his. I kept asking him to ask her for her number, but he was reluctant because, being married, he didn't want to come off as hitting on her. After some convincing, he finally asked, and I kept the number for a week before texting her. I was hesitant because I didn't want to seem desperate. She was gorgeous, and I figured plenty of other guys must have been eyeing her at the party. Luckily, she replied, saying she regretted not asking for my number. We hit it off right away. At the time, she was working part-time because she preferred the freedom. No strings attached. That should have been a red flag, but I didn't see it that way. I was stuck in a job that drained me, and the idea of living free was appealing, so it just clicked. After dating for 2 years, I proposed, and we got married in a small, intimate ceremony. Claire didn't want to spend money on a big wedding, preferring instead to put that money toward a vacation. So, we went on a 15-day trip to Southeast Asia after the wedding. About a year and a half later, Claire found out she was pregnant, and she freaked out. We had never planned to have kids so soon. She wanted to travel the world with me first. Initially, she considered terminating the pregnancy, but I convinced her to keep it. She was unsure, but eventually decided to go ahead with it. Pregnancy isn't easy for anyone, and I did my best to support her through all of it. There were moments when her emotions got the better of her, and I took it all in stride, understanding that she needed me to be there. Even though the pregnancy was smooth, she had moments of frustration, but I didn't mind. After all, it was her time. She became worse, and I thought it was postpartum depression. Claire's behavior started to change drastically. I assumed it was due to lack of sleep and exhaustion from nursing the baby. She seemed so depressed and caged, longing for the freedom she once had. I took her to therapy, and the doctor diagnosed her with postpartum depression, something natural for many women after delivery. I tried to help her regain a sense of freedom. I hired a full-time nanny, so she could have time for herself. Our daughter was barely 2 months old when Claire resumed her old lifestyle of partying and going out with her friends. I didn't stop her because the doctor said that a happy mom is a better nurturer for her baby. 7 months later, found a condom in her bag, and now she's throwing her best friend under the bus to save her reputation. Coming back to the updates, Claire was trying hard to gaslight the situation, but I didn't let it slide. I told her that if she thought she could put on an act and escape accountability, she was wrong. I made it clear I wouldn't let this go until she came clean, because her earlier explanation was absolute nonsense. Since she refused to open up, I decided to investigate myself. I wanted to check her phone, but she's always been overly secretive about it. Even while asleep, she keeps it under her pillow or by her side. Asking her to show me her phone directly wasn't an option. She'd create a massive scene, accusing me of doubting her, followed by endless drama. I don't know how else to gather evidence since Claire clearly lacks the conscience to confess. Any suggestions? If she's guarding her phone like it holds state secrets, maybe I need to channel my inner James Bond and get creative. Perhaps I could use our baby as a distraction, or go for the classic accidental spill maneuver. Oops, I spilled my coffee on your phone. Let me grab a towel. Of course, I'd need a solid backup plan for when she starts suspecting foul play, preferably one involving a suitcase and a one-way ticket to sanity. Update 2. Thanks for all the advice. Many of you suggested hiring a PI, and I was about to. But before that, I decided to dig deeper myself. One Sunday, I stalked Claire's social media accounts. Well, I didn't find anything from a public view. One photo of her with her best friend, Mia, caught my eye. I then stalked Mia's profile and learned she's married and has a toddler. This made me think about what Claire had said earlier, that Mia was the one at the bar with the guy who needed the condoms. I asked Claire if Mia's husband knew about this. She looked uneasy but said it was just a one-time thing. I pretended to believe her and asked if Mia did this often. She hesitated, then started rattling off incidents of Mia's supposed flirting at bars. I listened, nodding, before finally saying, "That's funny. By the way, isn't Mia married with a toddler? Are you two supporting her cheating on her husband?" Claire froze. Then she started stammering, "Oh no, it's just harmless flirting. Nothing serious." I pressed on, "But you mentioned she needed a condom. Why would she need that for a harmless flirting?" That's when Claire's story shifted. She said, "Oh, did I say Mia? My bad pregnancy brain. I meant Karen, my single friend. She's the one who's been parting. Mia is completely innocent. Her ability to twist the narrative left me speechless. I laughed and said, Claire, you don't have to cover for Mia. Are you afraid I'll tell her husband? She panicked and pleaded with me not to. Please, don't. It'll ruin their marriage. They have a baby. She loves her husband dearly. It was meaningless, just a mistake. I knew she was lying not to protect Mia, but to protect herself. Everything she had said about Mia was actually about her, but she wasn't going to confess easily. I told her I wasn't comfortable letting Mia's husband remain in the dark, and that I was going to tell him everything. Claire lost it, screaming, "Who are you to play moral police? Stay out of this." I stood my ground and said I wouldn't listen to her excuses. I was going to tell Mia's husband. That's when she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. I had a feeling she was finally about to confess, but I wasn't ready for what was coming next. I stormed into my room and locked the door. I didn't want Claire to get away with her infidelity by merely confessing. I wanted revenge. Her cheating wasn't just going to cost her our marriage. It was going to ruin her friendship too. I messaged Mia on Instagram and told her that Claire had spilled all her dirty little secrets. She was shocked. To back it up, I sent Mia recordings of Claire ranting about Mia's supposed affair. Mia left me on read, but moments later, I heard Claire's phone ringing. Claire began banging on the door, crying and yelling, "Why are you doing this to me? Open the door. Why are you destroying everything? Why can't you trust me?" I guessed she was still on the phone with Mia, because I heard her yell, "He's not opening the door. God knows what he's up to." Mia eventually called me. She begged me to listen to Claire. I told her I wasn't listening to anyone, and that my next step was to send the recordings to her husband. Mia freaked out and pleaded with me to wait. She asked me not to do anything rash until I'd spoken to Claire. I calmly responded, "Why don't I call your husband right now? We can all listen to these stories together." That's when Mia blurted out the truth. She said, "Those aren't my stories. Everything Claire told you is actually about herself. She's been cheating on you for over 4 months." I was silent for a moment, then asked, "Why didn't you stop her?" Mia hesitated but admitted, "We tried. The other girls and I did everything we could to knock some sense into her, but she kept saying she deserved this little pleasure because she gave you a beautiful baby." It all clicked. My gut had been screaming this truth for a long time, and now I had the confirmation I needed. Mia's confession made it clear she was telling the truth. But I wasn't done. I wanted to sever every support system Claire had. I asked Mia to come over with her husband. I'm not sure if I went too far, but I wanted to make sure Mia's husband knew what kind of person Claire really was, and that he should keep Mia away from her. Mia agreed to come over, but asked me not to show the recordings to her husband. She said Claire was so good at spinning stories that anyone would believe her, and she didn't want her husband doubting her. I agreed to that. Mia arrived at my place within an hour, and I stayed locked in my room until she got there. When she came in, I heard Claire yelling at her, "Why are you here? I told you I'll handle this, so just go away. I'm dealing with it." I couldn't stay quiet anymore and came out of my room, while Mia and Claire were shouting at each other. It was a total mess, with both of them yelling. Then Mia's husband stepped in and demanded that Claire tell her side of the story. Mia gave Claire a look that told her not to even think about lying. Claire, sobbing, finally confessed everything. She admitted that the stories she'd told me about Mia were actually about her own actions. She had been picking up men from bars and sleeping with them. Mia's husband was in shock, furious that Claire had tried to frame her friend to cover up her own mistakes. He yelled at Mia, "Is this the kind of friend you've been hanging out with?" She was about to destroy our marriage. Once Claire had finished her confession, Mia and her husband stood up and walked out. Mia told Claire, "Don't ever contact me again. I love my husband and family, and you're not worth losing them." Claire tried to hold on to Mia's hand, but Mia shook her off and walked away. After they left, Claire turned to me and asked, "Are you happy now? What did you gain from humiliating me in front of Mia and her husband? Is this what men do?" I glared at her and said, "Your woman card isn't going to work anymore. You've used every excuse: pregnancy, postpartum depression, everything. Now you're going to face the consequences of your actions. The humiliation you're talking about is just the beginning. You're going to get what you deserve." I grabbed my stuff and went into another room, calling my lawyer to discuss my next steps. I told him to find any legal loopholes that could help me get full custody of our daughter. He asked me to gather evidence of Claire's neglect, like her partying habits and the men she brought into the house. He said we'd build a case around child safety, how it wasn't safe for a child to live with a mother who constantly introduced new men into their home. It's not clear how this will play out, but I'm prepared to fight for my daughter. I'm going to protect her from her liar and cheater mother. I'll update you once this is all over. It looks like Claire's little web of lies came apart faster than I expected. Who knew that a little digging into social media would lead to such a dramatic unraveling? Now it's time for the real battle: custody. It's like a game of Monopoly, but instead of properties, I'm fighting for the future of my daughter. And with Claire's behavior, she's about as reliable as a used car salesman in a clown suit. So now it's time to strap in and fight for my little girl. If Claire wants to play the victim, she better be ready for me to lay out all the evidence. It's time to show Claire that actions have consequences, and cheating through life doesn't work when a child's well-being is on the line. Update 3. Apologies for deleting my last update. I had revealed my lawyer's plan for gaining full custody of our daughter, which I shouldn't have done. The day after posting it, when I met with my lawyer, he asked me not to discuss the case with anyone. I told him I had shared it anonymously on Reddit, and he strongly advised me to delete it, so I did. Now that everything is over, I've reposted it, and it's available on my profile. While I still can't go into the legal details, I can share some other aspects of what happened. After the confrontation, I stayed in the guest bedroom and tried to keep my distance from Claire. She would try to get close, cooking me breakfast and dinner, but I ignored her. She even made a sorry cake, bought flowers, and wrote cards, thinking I'd get over it. She had no idea what was about to come. Almost a month later, my lawyer showed up with the divorce papers. Claire freaked out. She looked at me, terrified, and asked, "What are you doing? How could you do this to me?" After the attorney left, I told her to pack her things and leave. She cried and begged for a chance to save our marriage for the sake of our daughter. She tried to hug me, but I pushed her away. She said she had nowhere to go, and I chuckled. "Not my problem anymore. I gave you everything you wanted. Now I'm giving you what you deserve. You deserve to be on the streets." Claire threatened to take everything I had left. I said, "Go ahead. Good luck hiring a lawyer. The good ones don't come cheap, unless you want to spread your legs to pay them." She tried to head for our daughter's nursery, but I blocked her, saying, "You're not getting her. She's not going to live on the streets with you." Claire broke down, saying I was ripping her away from our daughter. I told her, "You're not interested in being a mother, are you? I'm freeing you from all responsibility. You can now live the life you wanted." She packed her things and left. My lawyer had built a strong case for full custody. Evidence of Claire's neglect, her partying habits, and lack of interest in caring for our daughter. But it turned out that Claire wasn't keen on fighting for custody anyway. She didn't have a house, a job, or stability. She didn't even try to fight me for our daughter. However, she went crazy demanding alimony. I can't disclose the exact amount, but let's just say it was way too low compared to what she was asking for. It was worth every penny to get her out of my life. One day, Mia and her husband came by to check on our daughter. Mia apologized for not telling me about Claire's affairs sooner. She said she tried to stop Claire, but Claire wouldn't listen. Mia was glad I got full custody because Claire wasn't involved with the baby and would never be able to raise her properly. Mia told me Claire had always complained about how fussy our daughter was, overplaying the whole postpartum thing. Mia's husband told me that Claire had reached out to them for help, but he'd turned her away. Since then, Claire had been bouncing from one friend's couch to another, and her drinking habit had only gotten worse. I said I didn't care about her life anymore. Mia and her husband offered to help with babysitting, but I thanked them for their gesture. My parents had moved in to help with the baby, and we also had a full-time nanny. Our daughter was in good hands. I might let her meet her mother someday, but not yet. For now, she's happy and safe with her dad. At least I have full custody of my little girl. And Claire's off chasing cheap booze and living on couches. It's like a modern-day fairy tale. Except instead of a happy ending, Claire is the deadbeat ex, and our daughter is better off without her. As for Claire's alimony demands, let's just say she's got about as much chance of getting that as she does winning the lottery on a unicorn. Here's to navigating the chaos of divorce and custody like a pro. I've earned every bit of peace that comes my way.